Good morning, kindergarten class, and welcome to our music lesson for Friday, June the 4th. I hope that you can go find or remember having worked on this coloring sheet a couple of weeks ago. If you get an opportunity to screenshot and send my email a picture of how you colored those, I'd love to see all the creative colors that you would have used to color in these notes. Remember, these were eighth notes. Now, they're a little bit different because they made this a little more decorative on the staff lines. So these were eighth notes when they stood alone, and these were eighth notes in pairs. Very often, words come in kind of feeling like pairs of eighth notes or syllables. For instance, happy birthday, happy birthday, like a pair of eighth notes. Or if you say a note quickly, stop. That could feel like an eighth note alone. So our speaking is often in rhythm, and it's rhythm that sometimes we can use notes to represent, as we've been doing a lot in our Pilgrim's Progress story. We'll get to that just a little later. This week we have a worksheet that you should have found in your package, and it is called the music alphabet. Remember how many letters are in the music alphabet? 7 letters. Do you remember the song we did a number of weeks ago? The music alphabet song. Let's try singing that now. And if you had your worksheet, it'd be super easy to fill it in, even as we're singing it or immediately after we're done singing it. Remember our alphabet song. Okay, let's try that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the name of the piano keys. Only 7 letters get in the music alphabet. What are those letters? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the letters of the piano keys. Let's try that once more. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the letters of the piano keys. Only 7 letters get in the music alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the letters of the piano keys. There you go. So that should really help you out with your worksheet. Now, I want to just bring out friends that you probably haven't seen in a little while. Remember some of our friends who represented, and they were in different families. Remember, this was Petey percussion. What kind of instruments are percussion instruments? Yell some out. Did somebody say drums? That's a good one. How about rhythm sticks? That's a good one. Anything that you kind of have to strike for a resounding sound is an idea of what a percussion. So this was Petey percussion. We also had, do you remember this guy? Waddy Wind. Now remember, Waddy Wind was the part of the wind instrument family. Can you yell out for me some of the wind instruments? Did you say recorder? Or trumpet? Flute? They would all be part of Waddy Wind's family. And then the third family that we talked about was Sammy String. Here he is. Now, what is a string instrument that would be part of Sammy's family? Well, if you said ukulele, you were right. That's a string instrument. What about a piano? Did somebody say guitar? Very good. I am going to hold up a picture of an instrument, and I want you to just holler out which family and which person would be part of this family. So if this picture is a violin, The violin has strings. So which family would it be part of? Who knows? It would be Sammy String. That's part of the string family. All right. What about this picture? What is this? That looks like a drum. Which family is that part of? Percussion. Who is part of that family? If I hold up my puppets? Petey Percussion. He's part of the percussion family. Now I have one more picture. Do you know what this is? This is a trumpet. And a trumpet is part of which music family? Well, if you said Waddy Wind, you were right. The wind instruments require air blowing to create the sound. So just a quick revisit of some of our friends of the different families. Now, I'd like to go ahead and tell you a little bit more of our story of Pilgrim's Progress. Now, what you need today is your rhythm sticks. Remember, I've been doing a lot of painting, so I just took my painting sticks, put some music notes on them, and you might want to do that. Just decorate them up any way you like. You could color them, you could wrap them in something, you could stick some strings on the end to make them more creative. Any way you like to make that just a little bit more fun. Today we're going to add a new person. He's not a very nice guy, but his name is Giant Despair. Quarter, half note, quarter, quarter. 1 beat, 1, 2 beats, 1 beat, 1 beat. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. Giant Despair. So to do that rhythm, we'd go Giant Despair. And we're going to be introduced to him today. We last left Pilgrim and Hopeful. And remember, they had passed over and hopped into Bypath Meadow. Remember, Bypath Meadow was 1 beat, 8th note. Bypath Meadow. So if you have your sheet available, that would be filled out if you have that. Or if you don't, that's okay. Just try and do some rhythms along with me as I tell the story. They thought Bypath Meadow looked so much more comfortable. And they hopped the fence and over they went. Well, lo and behold, they were not very long across the fence when a terrible storm started out. And thunder and lightning. So they quickly grabbed some pieces of wood and tried to make something to protect themselves from the terrible storm. At the end of last week's story, remember that clomping? And they looked over, and all of a sudden a hand reached down and ripped all the boards away, and there was Giant Despair. And remember the rhythm? Giant Despair. What are you doing here? And he grabbed them both by the scruff of their necks, and he threw them into his prison. And he locked the gate behind them. How dare you start on my meadow? Anybody who comes in my meadow will be quickly thrown into my castle of despair. And so in they went. It was a terrible, terrible dungeon, and it was cold, and it was wet, and there was bugs, and there was spiders. And there sat Hopeful and Pilgrim. Yet again, they had decided to not watch and pray carefully. They decided that, the Bypath Meadow looked so much better and so much easier than the road they were on to the Celestial City. Well, they were not there very long when they quickly realized how they had tried to take the easy way. They pulled out the Word of God and they began to read it. And they realized that sometimes traveling to the Celestial City means there are some rough spots. But they never needed to leave or go off that path because the good king was going to be with them. And he was waiting just for them to reach out and ask for help. The two of them felt like they were in despair. Despair is a word that means there's no hope. This was hopeful. There was no hope. This was the end. And so day after day after day, they stayed in the castle. And day after day, the giant Despair stood outside watching for them. Occasionally, he'd feed them a little breadcrumb here and there, but he was not a kind person at all. "Oh, perhaps we'll never get out of here," said Pilgrim and Hopeful. "We've gone off the path. There's no hope. There's no way to get back." But as they read the Word of God, they began to read how some of the travelers to the celestial city had sometimes gotten off path. The Israelites had done their own things. There was many times, many of the people who were written about in the book of the Bible, the Word of God, had gone away from God. But when they repented and were sorry, God accepted them back in and continued with them on the journey. Oh, if only. And while Christian Pilgrim did that, all of a sudden he felt something. And he reached inside. He said, "How could I be so silly? I forgot. I had a key that was tucked in it. And it was the promise of God key. That if we would confess, he would never, ever leave us or forsake us. That he would watch over us and take care of us. Do you suppose this key could fit in the dungeon gate?" And they tried it. And sure enough, in it went. Click! The giant Despair was sleeping. And so they quietly went to the next gate. The promise of God key opened it. Click! And finally they went to the final gate to get out. And they opened it and all of a sudden they heard... It was a squeaky gate. And with that, the giant Despair leapt up and said, "How dare you leave? You can't leave." And they held up the key of the promise of God. And with that, the giant fell. Hopeful and Pilgrim ran as fast as they could out of there. They hopped off Bypath Meadow back into the original path they had been on and continued on their journey. Do you think they're going to make it safely? Do you think they're going to hit any more troubles on this journey to the Celestial City? Next week we'll find out. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye, kindergartens.